welcome to Season 3 of the Sober Boozers Club podcast. My name is Ben Gibbs. I'm an alcoholic and beer commentator, and this is a very special season because this season we're not going to be releasing weekly episodes. No. We're going to be releasing special one-off episodes every now and again, talking to members of the non-drinking beer drinking community. Now that sounds like quite a niche field, and that is because, quite frankly, it is. So I thought to start this season, rather than focusing on one person, we should talk to a whole bloody group. Well, would you look at this unlikely lot? How are we all?
Yeah,
good.
You're
Good. You know,
Fantastic,
this might be the largest collective group of, I'm going to say non-drinking drinkers, but I actually don't know if everybody is off the source here completely. I think we all are, but I'm going to assume we all are. But I think this is the biggest recorded session of people like us that drink beer but don't really drink alcohol that has ever been done. So this is nice.
Yeah, cheers for having us, mate. It's really special.
Pleasure. It makes sense, doesn't it? Because we have all bonded through beer, which is something that when I stopped drinking booze, I didn't think that was going to happen. So I think it would be nice, so I don't have to be honest, to get everybody to introduce themselves and tell me what the fuck you do.
Go on then, who's going first?
I'll go first.
Go on then.
Just in case I don't get cut out of the episode, so I thought I'd just do it. Yeah. So, I'm Morgan. I'm a pharmacist, and I'm originally from Swansea, but I live in the Lincolnshire area, and I love alcohol-free beer. Yeah.
My name's Henry Bearcock. I'm from Hull. I've been following Ben for a while now, and since then it's really opened my eyes to all the different alcohol-free options, and I run a group called Alcohol Free, which is all about choice in pubs and other venues, basically trying to get the message out there that Beck's Blue isn't a choice. Go on then,
I'll go. I'm Neil. I'm a warehouse manager. I live in the High Peak. I'm close to Manchester. I've kind of been sober for 2 years and 4 months now, so just want to say hello to you all.
Yeah.
Hi, folks. My name's Louis. I'm from Ramsbottom in North Manchester, or East Lancashire, depending on who you ask. I've been sober for 4.5 years now, I think, coming up to 5 years. You might know me as the sober sloth. I spend a lot of my time hiding behind a stuffed teddy bear, which my therapist is aware of. It's not that taboo a thing anymore. But yeah, similar to Henry, I'm here to kind of show the world that there's more to alcohol-free than Beck's Blue. I can't stand the stuff.
I was going to say, you're like the official spokesperson for the sloth. The sloth couldn't be here today, so he sent in a spokesperson.
He had other things going on, but yeah, he's I'm here to pass on the message from him.
If I can, I'll interrupt the sloth, although the sloth is, I'm somewhat a big fan. I'm Tom, but everyone calls me Kronk because I've got a distinctive last name, so no one calls me Tom. I have been a fan of craft beer since I started drinking when I was 18. And then in 2023, I crashed my road bike, had no idea how it happened, coma, traumatic brain injury, told I shouldn't drink anymore. So I come at it from the medical angle, but have kind of like a deep love of the branding, the making, the marketing, everything. I can't help but think about and talk about it all the time. So yeah, that's my angle at all of this. And I try my best to get my mates who still drink as much as we used to at least have the odd one. And slowly but surely, I'm winning them all over.
Wow.
I'm Richard Gray, otherwise goes as Sumo Juice. I am a graphic designer. I've obviously have worked in this sphere on beer labels, most notably for Mash Gang pre-sale. But obviously I do other bits for Brass Castle and Vault City, quite a lot of the Vault Cities after the Mash Gang, but not doing those anymore at the moment because they've now hired in-house, which is a shame. But yeah, so I've kind of come at from that view. But I was, in terms of my own journey, I was probably just on the sliding scale downwards, just, moderating, lower and lower ABVs, less of it. And so I kind of count it as like quiet quit alcohol, really. So it's not really a kind of, my sobrietous, am I not? Sobrietous, is that even a word?
It should be.
I kind of go with the sense of, I might have a drink one day. That would be fine, but I probably won't. So yeah, I've just sort of kind of slipped down things. So I've kind of represent that kind of the angle of just having arrived at a place where I'm like, I'm, not having gone through an addiction journey or a medical journey or anything. I've just kind of got to a point and gone, alcohol doesn't really serve me anymore. Finding that actually, as you reduced it down, you find yourself going, actually, one beer really does actually make me quite fuzzy in the head. And even though it won't give me a hangover, I'll still wake up in the night and be like, actually, this isn't great for me anymore.
So you've basically completed, what the dream that most people in active addiction did, but completely nonchalantly.
Yeah, completed alcohol. That's what it was. That's what you were going for. Yeah, you've completed alcohol. Well done. You've reached the boss level.
If it was me for fucking years being like, oh, maybe one day I'll be able to drink like a normal person. Whereas you over here are just like, I'm just going to leave this now, and that's fine. Do you guys remember your first alcohol-free beer? And I'm not talking like the first one that you had after, it got good. Do you remember your first ever alcohol-free beer and what that was? What was it? Go on, Emery.
I remember mine because I've already mentioned it, and it was when I did Dry Jan back in 2014, and the only options, and I mean the only, was Beck's Blue. And I remember going out in a club because I was designated driver and hating every single minute of it, because I just felt like everyone was obviously getting progressively more pissed, and I'm here with this disgusting fizzy chemical bottle. It was just the worst, and I was in such a bad mood, and that kind of planted the seed of me thinking I could never stop drinking, because if this is what I've got, I'm fucked.
You go, Richard. I'll follow you.
Okay. I think mine was the Big Drop collaboration with Tiny Rebel.
Bougie.
Bougie start.
It was either that one. Or because there was that one, or I know there was a Big Drop that they released, and it went into a Beer Bods box way back in the day. And I remember spotting it when the box came out and being like, but yeah, it was between those two, because I think that was also a Big Drop. But yeah, the Big Drop in the Tiny Rebel was an interesting one, because of course Tiny Rebel were known for going up and down the scale. And obviously their relationship with alcohol-free beer has been troubled, let's say. I mean, they had really embraced it one year to only completely shun it the next year, and have never really kind of come back to the scene, having done some quite good beers in the very early days, pre-Mash Gang, pre-pandemic, pre all that, and doing some quite decent. So it's a shame they've only really got kind of the one, occasionally another one going. But yeah, it was a lot of people. You could see people online going like, is this supposed to be 10.5? Is it 10.5 stout? Is that what it is? And they're going, no, we haven't cocked up. This is a 0.5% stout. And I did, I think probably went through all the normal things of going, is it a bit thin or whatever, but not. I'm actually really enjoying it and going, actually, this stout's not really my style. It's not. I embrace them more as I've with alcohol free, ironically, more than I ever did with when I was drinking ABV. Probably same with lager, in fact, actually, although I did have a bit of more of a thing for lager before I kind of gave up, which is, I guess, that's why it gives me that perspective, to be able to see actually how close these beers are now getting, because it's all that sort of experience that, we've all had. If you've all had beers, especially you, Tom, where you've had a lot of craft beers on your way through, you know what you're looking for, and you can kind of compare a lot of these ones, especially when these breweries like Verdant and Track and all these are doing full versions of their ABV, headliners, if you like, the likes of the Chubbles and the whatever. You can kind of go, oh, actually, that is getting pretty darn close now.
You've taken all my talking points right out of my mouth.
Sorry.
It's bang on. It's like I've seen the Sunlit Uplands, right? I know how good it can be. I know like the quality and the craft and the brilliance of it. And the first beers I had when I, let's just say, woke up out of the coma, because it's much more like, dramatically impactful, I was like, fuck, these are disappointing, because I was bought brilliantly by some friends. Someone sent me a care package of 24 beers, and they were the 24 most boring beers, and it was all the kind of mass market stuff. And I've also got this lined up, which is the best supermarket beer in my opinion, the Australia. But so that would have been the heady heights. And then as my taste buds, and I'm convinced, I don't want to go off on one here, as you might work out, I could talk for a while on this. I'm convinced my taste buds have morphed over time, and I've changed, but fundamentally I still know how good Track could be, which is why in our group chat I get so excited when Sans comes out, and I'm like, holy shit, we're getting there, and I'm so excited. And also the other thing, while I've got the mic, before I drop past the conch onto the sloth, I had this obsession with collecting them, right? So I don't buy crates of the things. I don't buy 12 at once. I buy, as the sloth will attest, I buy one of everything. And then if I go back to it, it's a very kind of hallowed thing because I haven't got endless pots of money. 50 quid a month's quite a lot of money to spend. So I'm collecting them in that sense, in the same way that I used to collect beer, which in hindsight is I was drinking too much beer. But I don't come at it from an addiction point of view. I come at it from the curtain drew across it and it was all quite sudden. So it's like, off I go on my next adventure. But I cut across the sloth, so please.
So yeah, Mr. Sloth, we were discussing first ever alcohol-free beer. Tell me yours wasn't Beck's Blue.
Imagine if it was. It would be so ironic. No, Bavaria was mine, which is still widely available, isn't it? And I've not, weirdly enough, it was my first one. It was probably back in about 2014, 2015. It was like when I'd finished uni and I'd moved back in with my mum and kind of things had just stagnated a bit in life, just kind of trying to figure out my next steps. And I was very bored a lot of the time, and I was also drinking a lot of the time. But because I was living at my mum's, in relatively close quarters, it felt very uncomfortable for me to be drinking the amount I wanted to be drinking each and every night, and also having to get up to go to work the next day as well. I've discovered Bavaria in Tesco. They're like the 6-pack of cans. I don't know if they still do them in cans, but I've not had it for a long time. But yeah, I really got on board with it, and it was purely from a kind of like just a kind of compulsion to want to be drinking something at night. I don't remember whether or not it tasted good or if it was absolute shite. I can't remember. I'm sure it absolutely does not compare to what we have access to nowadays, but it was I just needed something to drink that kind of represented beer to me, because otherwise I got a bit edgy, and I probably should have realized at the time that was a problem, because it wasn't, like I say, it wasn't until 2021 that I finally kind of kicked it, but I never kind of saw it as a problem, and because I was drinking Bavaria, I kind of felt like that balanced out of the drinking of the full ABVs, but yeah, I could easily sink 6 of them on a weeknight and get through 30 or 40 in a week, and then match that with full ABV beers at the weekend. But yeah, so I've always had a soft spot for Bavaria, so I need to get back into it and see what it actually tastes like now. But yeah, big fan of that.
I have this with those kind of beers that you may have tried years ago, and then like Budvar is one for me. I can remember drinking it a long time ago and thinking it's not all that, and then I had it on tap. It was actually with Mr. Beercock at the Great British Beer Festival, and I quite enjoyed it, and I was like, shit. And it goes back to what Tom was saying, like, have my taste buds changed? And I mean, they definitely have, but equally, has the recipe changed? Because I know they're doing a rebrand, aren't they? And I don't know if they're tweaking the recipe or not. I think we were talking about it earlier on.
We were. I mean, I think also the draft experience does elevate. It elevates every beer. I mean, I feel every single time Neil's like, I'm just going off into Manchester, and I'm like,
I was about to throw to Neil with that. I was like, speaking of draft,
because
Neil.
I mean, yeah, Neil is Mr. You do. I mean, obviously Manchester has an enviable amount of draft.
Yeah, it's fantastic down there. So I'm probably going in tomorrow as well. So I've got a day off work. So yeah,
I nearly came in today to Manchester because my partner had to go for work. And it was like, oh, should I just come with you just to go and get pints? And then it was the thought of, and that's how pathetic I am with this, and how I still drink like an addict, because it was the thought of getting on a train to Manchester at 7 this morning just to go and sink pints. I was like, yeah, I could do that. Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds like a really good thing to do. No, don't do that. That's silly. Like, you can go all the way to Manchester, spend however much on a train, be absolutely shattered just to sit and drink beer, but that's still the level of drinker that I am. It just doesn't have booze. But Neil, what was your first alcohol-free beer? On tap, what was your first? And then what would your first have been before?
I think on tap, the first one would be, can't really remember. Possibly.
Probably Lucky Saint, isn't it?
No, it's probably Brullo, I think I had in...
Oh.
I think I had Brullo beer on in Hinterland in Manchester. It's like I'd just become sober, and first time I'd gone into Manchester sober, and I'd heard about them opening this Hinterland bar. It's a sober bar, and it was just before the opening. They'd kind of just opened the doors. It was before they had the proper launch, and I was just there at dinner time, and we're walking past, and decided to go in for a pint. And so I think it was a pint of just. I'm not sure which Brullo it was. It might have been just the Lust for Life, I think. But yeah, they just got it on, and yeah, that was the first tap beer that I had. I think my first non-alcoholic beer was when I was about 7 or 8 years old and standing outside a pub in the village where I used to live, and I think it was Caliber. That was probably a bottle of Caliber and a packet of hedgehog flavoured crisps, I think it was, in the late 70s, early 80s. But,
do you know, I wish I could try Caliber. Genuinely. I mean that sincerely, because I've heard such terrible things, but I just want to drink it.
Yeah, I think it's still available.
I think they should bring it back. I genuinely think it would be such a statement to just bring Caliber back. I mean, there's a certain
same recipe, or like just as bad.
Well, they've done Rockshore, haven't they?
Well, yeah.
What's it reincarnated?
If Guinness will release Rockshore, why not bring
Rockshore
Caliber
is
back?
probably just using the Caliber recipe, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, who knows?
You should do an ad read for Rockshore for the podcast.
I was about 8 years old, so it tasted great. But yeah, I mean, I think the first craft beer after I stopped drinking, it was while I was still drinking. I think it was a Low Tide and Exhale Brewery lemongrass pale ale. I think I won a box of beers on a raffle thing online on Instagram, and I was still drinking craft beers, but there was just the lemongrass beer and the Exhale and Low Tide. Well, it was Low Tide, now it's Below Brew, isn't it? But yeah, that kind of changed my mind. I thought all beers, all non-alcohol at the time I was drinking. I thought all non-alcoholic beers, no flavour. I thought they were disgusting, like the Beck's Blue kind of thing. I'd never actually drunk it, but I'd seen people drinking it. But yeah, no, that was the first non-alcoholic brew that I had, and it changed my mind on it a bit. And so, starting off sober, I had a little starting point. It was a few weeks before I started getting sober, so that was a good starting point that actually something could be okay. But yeah, that was my first one.
And Morgan, you're nodding away enthusiastically there. Do you recall your first kind of moment where you went, yeah, this is really good?
So I remember I remember when I stopped drinking was because it was like lockdown and things, and then basically pharmacy degrees are not for the weak of heart. They absolutely shaft you most of the time. Okay, related though.
I mean, I don't want to say good, but also like good.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're not piss easy.
But I think the issue is that when I was in uni, it was like any excuse to go out, which is the case for most people in uni. But it was like, let's make a society just so we can get like gold card entry to every night out for free. It was almost like, if I don't have to pay to get into the club, like then I can spend more money on the booze. So it was literally like that for like, and obviously pharmacy is like a 4-year degree as well. So it was 3 years of solid of nearly going out every single night, like 3 years in a row, like eating terribly and then just repeating the cycle over and over again. A lot of my lecturers are probably who I now work with in the company I work for. I've seen me in some absolute states coming into uni in the first thing in the morning. And they still love to remind me to this day. They go, I remember that one time when I saw you and all that. Yeah, so good reminder. But yeah, first one I ever had definitely would be a Heineken Zero, just because it's very widely available. I think it was the case of, obviously, when things started to open up again after lockdown and stuff, I hadn't been drinking for a while anyway. I think it was a bit like Henry, where it was like dry Jan, and then suddenly it was like, oh, this is actually, like, I don't miss it at all. So it was a bit like, it was more for the case of like, liking the taste of beer, which is the same for everyone here, really, is that, the beers are good and it's a good experience to have them and things are getting good. But yeah, first one I definitely had was Heineken Zero, and definitely the first time I had one on tap as well was also Heineken Zero. but this was...
You mean like the Blade thing?
And this is a reminder to my bad life decisions. I used to have a David Lloyd membership, and they had Heineken Zero on tap in the gym.
Oh!
So I one day, instead of going to the gym, basically walked in and then had like a panini and then a pint of Heineken Zero, and then went home.
I mean, yeah,
that sounds like a good workout.
Yeah, because I was like, I'm paying all this money for this gym. I don't go anymore, as you can probably tell by the chins on my face. But yeah, the amount of money I was spending to go there just wasn't going. I just thought, might as well make moves.
I mean, I can't mock anyone. I used to have quite an expensive gym membership, and that was because there was a private golf club upstairs, and we all just used to do a shitload of coke. It was really nice. Yeah, not quite Heineken Zero, but that was my gym story. Could probably leave that in. That's fine, right? But it's interesting, right? We talk about the first good alcohol-free beer we had. And you think, oh, it's quite a recent thing. But actually, when you think back to your first really decent alcohol-free beer, it was fucking ages ago now. Like, there seems to be this narrative out there at the moment, or just this narrative that persists, that it's a very recent thing, that like, oh, alcohol-free beer is actually good now. And I know we talk about this all the time in our private little groups, but it seems to be a lot of people are like, oh, this is shocking, this stuff's good. And it's like, no, when you think back to the first one that you had that was really decent, like everyone thinks back to their first. They think back to Beck's Blue, they think back to Heineken, or they think back to, I mean, if you're Richard, something actually decent. But then when you think of what you're...
I've drunk a lot of awful stuff too.
Well, yeah.
There was a that was where I started, but there was a lot of in the middle.
In between. But
I
when
mean,
you think of when they started to get consistently good, you know, when it became a shock if you had a really bad beer, that was bloody ages ago now, right?
Yeah, I also think though that there's good, and now we're like really good, and we're just pushing it up to excellent, and it's like. I mean, one beer that I was going in when you started talking about on tap, I know the first one was probably a Lucky Saint. I think I went down to London and was like, I can go and find a pub near where I was having a client meeting. They've got it on draft, going in, and they just kind of look like what you just, you know, it was just a total normal experience. But I remember my second was a pint of Stoop here in York at Trebling Madness, who don't really do draft or very, very rarely. And I was like, this, and it was nice enough to be sunny and sit out in the big, like at the front. And I was just like, this is absolutely the experience. This is the first time I really felt like this is absolutely like bang on. This is experience. Yes, it might be 10 in the morning. I don't care. No, it's not. It wasn't quite that early in the morning. It was like, but it was probably just after midday. But, you know, there were lots of other people kind of having a midday pint. And this is like, this feels, no one knows. It's that whole kind of anonymous, you've just taken a beer and you've had it. I mean, I will say it still tasted better in the tank because I was at the canning day for the first batch at Leeds. And I have a particular love of dirty Leeds Stoop as opposed to London Stoop or Scotland Stoop. And I miss Stoops with a vengeance because I do kind of wonder if Stoop would now stand up to the likes of Zeus and Ghost and
Rosa.
Gold can that I'm never going to be able to pronounce. Vavadaski.
The Czech one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that was good. I had that a couple of days ago. Very good.
Very good.
Very good.
And obviously Rothaus and all the other kind of German ones that we've talked about as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't know if it would compete. I mean, I said at the time that was a lager that I would happily drink over ABV just as a lager. Just it doesn't matter. That's the one that was like, okay, now I'm stuck. That was for me. That was the crunch point of seeing the market turn because I was like, this is actually a beer from someone who was drinking at the time, who I would actually choose that beer over an alcohol lager.
So I guess the thing with you, Richard, like you obviously, you said you may have an ABV beer, like, you know, maybe there is a chance. So whereas I feel it's been a few years now since I've had one, so I've kind of forgotten what old beer tastes like, or full fat beer, if you will. So I've kind of lost that as a gauge. So I'm really just looking at it from a completely different angle now, not comparing it to what it used to be. I'm really just enjoying it for what it is. And if I don't like it, it's not because it's not a bad beer or it doesn't compare to a full fat beer. It's just because it's just not my preference. Whereas the likes of your Beck's Blues and some other just poor efforts, I look at that, I just think they're just churning it out. Whereas I think if some craft beer's gone to, you know, craft brewery's gone to the extent of making one, just because I don't like it doesn't make it mean it's not necessarily good. And I think it's, I feel it's quite rare I come across one that I don't like. And if I don't, I just go, it's just not for me then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the thing now, isn't it? It's kind of, imagine being in a world where we can disagree on what beer is good when they're all decent. You know, it's like it's as normal as full fat beers now. You know, some people love a Holsten Pils. I was guilty of that. Some people can't stand a Holsten Pils. Some people love imperial stouts. Other people don't like imperial stouts. Crossover in alcohol free now. I know that there's some really, I'm looking at you, Mr. Beercock, really hop heavy, like resinous bastards that just aren't for you. Whereas other people, like, that's the kind of shit I want to drink.
Yeah, give me the dank shit. That's what I want.
Yeah. Is that really?
Yeah.
Nah, well, this is the
just to feel something.
Yeah. I'm a dipper boy. I want dippers. Like, that's all I want.
Look, it's Tom suffered from lupulloid threshold shift.
100%. Exactly that.
High levels. But that's it. I mean, I would say I agree with Tom that it's probably been at least a year, year and a half since I last had an ABV beer. So yeah, it's a good period of time. It's not like it was just last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit. The difference is I just don't really. I've never thought, oh, I'm going to start. This is the day I'm going to do it. This is monumental. I know exactly where I was when I had my last beer. It's just that kind of, somebody will go, do you want to sip it? Try a sip of this, and I'm like, it's all right. I can pass it back. So it's basically, I go with what Tom was saying. Is that over the time even before that, I was probably drinking, probably for the year before that, probably 2-3 on a weekend, maybe, if I felt like it. So that the idea that the taste, I think the market's shifted, and I think and got better. And I think as you drink more alcohol-free beers, your palate does adjust to them. And I think that's why it goes into what Ben was saying, going back to those early beers and going, actually, what are they good now? And is that a recipe change, or did I just miss them on the way past because I was looking for something else? I mean, there's so many what I would call under the radar beers that we've probably all had on the way through, but you kind of forget about them because they're only in like a limited release, or only one retailer has them. Or you just sort of, you think, oh, go on their website and buy some, and then you realise you got to buy them in bottles and a 12-pack, and you're like, can't be bothered, and therefore you don't, and it slips you by, and you go and buy something else.
But this is why we all pissed the sober sloth, right, to get it in.
Yeah.
We all just go in the group chat and go, you need to get this in, you need to get this in.
It's like a personal shopping list, right?
Yeah, it's quite handy.
Yeah. I speak to you a lot more than I speak to my own family.
Yeah, I know that one. Literally, I'm glued to my phone 24/7. But that's what this thing can do. Like being in the world of alcohol-free beer, it's no different to being in the world of beer. It can consume your life just as much. Like it's just as valid and important. Question, and this isn't to out anyone, but whilst Rich was talking, I had a thought, and it's: has anyone accidentally or experimentally tasted beer with alcohol in sobriety?
Yeah. Do you want to go, Morgan?
I put it in the group chat. Do you remember? I was on holiday, and I was in Mallorca, and I was really impressed because when I was in Mallorca, it was like you walk into a shop and there's literally like Radlers and like loads of different like types of alcohol-free beers, and they were like 30 cents or something. It's like cheap as anything, and you're like sat on the beach with a Radler going like, the San Miguel Radler's like, this is actually really good, like just so good. And then I went to. It's quite funny. I went to meet up with my auntie who was there at the same time on her own holiday. And then so it was like me and my partner and my auntie sat there. And I was looking at the menu and it said Mahau 0.5. And I was like, oh, I've not had that one yet. That's pretty cool how it's on there. I'm going to order it. Came over in the glass, so it didn't come with the bottle. And I was like, oh, okay. They must have just poured it in the bottle there, whatever. And I sipped it and I saw it was like, I'd had the same one the day before, but like the actual 0.5%. And I was a bit like, this tastes slightly off, but is it because it's like on tap or something? But I couldn't really figure out what was going on. And honestly, it just shows how sensitive you've become to the alcohol when you've not had it for like 4 or 5 years. I got halfway down and my face literally like felt like it was on fire. Like, like you get that hot head. And I literally was like, fucking hell, I think this has got beer in it. But then at the same time, I was also like, oh, maybe I'm just warm, so I just kept drinking it. I just thought it's got to be a mental thing. That's fine. It's because I've not seen the can. It'd be all right. So I drunk it, and literally, like, I remember I like nudged I actually texted my other half who was sat opposite me, and I went, don't panic. But I think I've had a real beer, and she was like, she looked at me and she was like, you think you had a real beer? And then I literally got up, and I just remembered like. Oh, it's actually terrible because it just shows how bad it must have been when I used to drink. The anxiety I got in that moment on a beach in Mallorca was fucking mental. Like, you should never have that. I was walking around as if like everyone knew that I'd had a beer. And
everyone cared.
Yeah. And it was like, what's he looking at me for? What's he looking at me for? What's he doing? And it lasted for like 3 or 4, like, it lasted for ages. Like, I literally remember like for like the rest of the day being like, oh my God, I've not missed this. This feels awful. And I'd booked a really nice restaurant in the evening, and I still think that like I felt quite pissed turning up. And then I felt like I was getting like a bit of a headache after I was eating, and I was like, this sucks. That was like literally the moment where I was like, there's not even a single chance again I'm going to touch that ever again.
Yeah. It's
And the
like
whole
just-
reason it was wrong is because the 0.5 meant 500 mil.
Do you
And
know,
I had read
I've
it
been
wrong.
caught by that with Flotzinger Cola.
Mm.
I thought that, and we talked about this, didn't we? I've ordered this twice now, the Flotzinger Cola, and when it's arrived, I've been like, for fuck's sake, it's 3%. You fuckers, why is this in? And I got really pissed off with it might have been Trembling Madness.
Yeah, Trembling
putting
Madness
it in,
did it, yeah.
in the alcohol-free section. And then I realised, or was it, did you tell me it was 3% juice?
Yeah, it was the juice.
Yeah,
So I got on Google Translate and actually translated it, and it's 3% juice. But speaking of Trembling Madness, I mean, I didn't want to drop the minute. I was going to say a place in York, but anyway, you've already done it, so go ahead. So lovely guys, but no. So basically, I went in there, and the Castile Tropical. So they've got their little stand in the middle of the shop where it's all the alcohol frees, the 0.5s or whatever. So I picked up a Castile Tropical, bought it along with loads of others, got home. Me and my wife had it. We'd already had it before, and we'd had it, and we were just a bit like, it's a bit more bitter than I remember. It tasted really almost bit just different. Anyway, we ended up looking at the bottle, and both my wife and I are sober, and we both looked at it, and she was gutted. You know what I mean? Like you kind of feel like you've let yourself down, but then not having done it intentionally, it's a bit like we didn't know. And also the Castile bottles, they're so similar. There is really, apart from the 0.0, there is no differentiation at all. And so it was, they just put it in the wrong place. And, I spoke to them and just said, look, not really kicking off, just make sure it doesn't happen again for someone else, basically, rather than, but that's my experience. But we kind of didn't let it get us down too much, but it's just annoying.
See, I'm going to, I will throw to Richard straight after this, but I'm going to, we're saying, at least we didn't do it deliberately. I have deliberately tasted beer with alcohol in sobriety because I wanted to know. Now, I didn't drink a pint. I didn't drink any volume. I had maybe 2 glugs. And it was fucking horrible. And I was like, oh, shit. And it was, it was really weird. It felt like I was going to it was just like, right, the safe word is this. But I was at a wedding. I was with my partner, and I mean, it was only Corona. She had a Corona with alcohol. I had a Corona with no alcohol, obviously. And I was just like, you know what? Give me a bottle. And she looked at me like, no, this isn't where we relapse, is it? And it was just like, no, I want to see what it tastes like. After just 2 years in to sobriety, I've been talking about beer pretty much every day in that 2 years. It's like, what has happened to my taste buds? What's happened to my palate? What is this stuff like? And I had a sip, and it was just chemical. That is all I got from it, was just chemical burn. And it's like, this is wild. It is wild how acclimatized you become to that sensation. And I wonder how many beers, and this isn't really, I'm never going to know this, but how many beers just hide behind that? Do you know what I mean?
Like behind the alcohol, do you mean?
Yeah, like the kind of, that burn that you get from ethanol, from alcohol, like that is undeniably a profile in beer.
It's like telling your body it's working, so you just go through it, because it's like the end result is you're getting pissed for most cases anyway.
I've now got 2 points.
So
first point is
Cancel, Ben.
Yeah. First point was going on to what I actually had this conversation with Henry actually at the weekend, which was about how close some beers can get in terms of the design. So Faith, now that they've redesigned it, gone from Holy Faith, very clearly not different from Faith, to Faith alcohol free. The differential is literally this little tiny strip. And and a bit of it's not blue. It's like they've gone for a kind of turquoise, so it's not quite the blue strip of sin. But the problem is you look at the can and you look at the box, and every single time I've picked up the box, I've had to sit there and go. And I know what I'm looking for, but I look, and it's worse because my local Sainsbury's for ages had no Holy Faith in the section while it was being turned over. So there's just an empty slot. But you'd go round to the alcohol section, and in the Faith slot, they had the alcohol-free Faith. Well, just one box just randomly had been put on there. And I was like, I'm having that. And I found it there 2-3 times until they eventually worked out that that's what's it. So that kind of packing error, which is, I guess, is what may have happened to Henry, is that somebody's just went, this is supposed to be here, that's the right beer, and has just cocked up and put it in the wrong section because it's so close. So I do think there's going to be...
My favourite thing on that is when they launch a new alcohol-free beer in supermarkets. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but for a 2-week window, you don't get ID'd for it. It just goes through. And then after that 2 weeks, all of a sudden you scan it through and it's like, oh, God's sake, now I need to have an argument with the Morrison's lady.
And then the other thing is going on to the alcohol thing, because I had this, and I think it's one of the reasons why Vault City might not be particularly asking me back for doing any more labels. It might just be because, I mean, obviously one of the things I was finding was that they were asking for designs for certain things. So we had one of their beers was, I think it was one of the supermarket beers, but I never know which supermarkets it's going to pop up in. So they did one called Jungle Juice, which was based on Umbongo. Now, obviously, it's the kind of beer that they could never do in alcohol-free because that would be Umbongo. So there'd be no point. So that's why Vault City, in terms of them doing alcohol-free, they've got to be really careful with their profile in terms of picking something. I think they are the natural successor to the low motion range that Ta'ul did, if you ever came across that. So really nice, special sour beers with a mixture of fruits that could be, and a lot of their beers would naturally translate, as long as they are not a drink in their own right. Iron Brew, for example, again, can't really do that. But yeah, they were doing the Jungle Juice and they wanted a higher version. And I'm like, really? But a higher version? Because it was like 6% already. And I guess it sold well. And supposedly the same supermarket was going, yeah, we'd want an 8% version. And I was like, your beers, the problem with them is that, well, not the problem, it's like the thing with your beers is you can't really taste the alcohol. They're so fruity, they're so they kind of mask it quite well. Obviously, to our attuned tastes who now don't like alcohol or don't handle it, we can now tell that alcohol much more than anyone else. I think we could all agree. So you'd probably go, it tastes a bit off, it tastes a bit something. But with a lot of their beers, it's hidden. So therefore, adding that extra 2% is just like, that's just alcoholism, surely? That's just, I mean, I honestly think if you could take a room and take the same beer and go, right, here's an alcohol-free version, here's a 3% version, here's a 6% version, and here's a 9% version, and ask people, and let's say they all taste identical, completely identical. There will be people who will go for the 9% purely because they're getting more value. They're like, yeah. Tom's like, we'll go for that one.
Do you remember the Verdant range? Do sharks like water? Baby sharks, and then it just goes the whole way up. Like I went with my friends to, where is it? Yeah, this is the bit where you're gonna have to jump to me getting the right name of it. Craft Metropolis, but the Brixton one. Anyway, I had some great alcohol-free beers that day, and this is where I need to put my hand up and say I did have I'm not a full sobriety guy, right? I'll taste someone's dipper occasionally, so I want to kind of don't hate me for it. But in the early year, I know I'll get out, I'll leave. Because I fully didn't drink for a year, and then I was like, I'm going to have a sip of someone's dipper, right? Roll the dice,
Sounds so wrong in out of context.
I know. You feel free to clip that up if you like, but
it's a very unusual sentence.
The first time I did it, it'll be someone's massive gold top track thing, and it's super duper £8 a can, and I was like, holy shit, this stuff is it's going to blow my head off. But now, after 2.5 years, way down the line, I taste it again, and it doesn't have that same. Some of you guys were describing it as bitterness or the ethanol. The ethanol thing, I think it was Ben who said it. That was being light bulb. I think I've described it to some of my friends that is just it's like someone's poured vodka in it.
It's like fluid.
Yeah. And that's where I can feel, it feels to me as this kind of person who's kind of drifting in the nether regions of all this different alcohol-free try a little bit over here occasionally. I can feel the kind of the chasm closing, and I can feel people who are really into their craft beer, who massively give a shit, or are home brewers who are just so into this stuff and live and breathe it. They can see the gap closing as well. And people like everyone here on this call, just holding the baton up, constantly preaching, is having a real substantial change. And it's I do marketing for a living, right? I can't help it. I see it everywhere. And it's just it makes me really excited that we're getting there. But I do think we get to say we were at the forefront of it, which is quite fun, right? Because we're a little club right now, but the club's getting bigger.
Go on then, Morgan.
I was going to say, I know, it's just This is all gonna get cut anyway, so I don't know what I'm saying this for. Yeah, I was gonna say that when I was drinking, I wouldn't really say that I was really into like all the craft beer and things like that, and all these like keeping an eye on all these different breweries. But I would say that like since the sloth came around, I feel like I'm checking stuff all the time, and it's actually quite a bit of a hobby now, which is nice. And Louis will know that I've had like a couple of mates, and I've basically done orders for them because they've said if you think it was pretty good, then I want 20 quid's worth. Do me the best thing you can. And then I always say to him, I go, I'm sending my mate's order over now, and then whatever. And then I always tell him if it's a good review. And 9 times out of 10, like people do love it. And it's good to kind of have like, a weekly check-in. It's a hobby I never thought I'd end up having. And also it's like part of my financials for the month is like, I've got to get at least 5 in this month.
Beer budget,
just to kind of see what's going on. And obviously, I love doing the reviews things from as well. I find like every other day I'm taking pictures of them and then, and stuff.
Especially your great paws as well.
What's that?
Especially your awesome paws.
Oh, it's none of that. I like you.
God, yeah. Well, this was kind of why. I mean, I asked about the full strength test if anyone had drunk it because I've wondered often. When people come at you, which it doesn't happen so often anymore, but it still happens more than you'd like it to. And it's like, what's the point? And so, what's the point in you drinking your beer? Why don't you just drink vodka? If the only point in something is because it gets you to a point where you want to be, it gets you nice and pissed. Just drink vodka. No, you're drinking the beer because you prefer the taste of the beer. And when you take the ethanol out of the beer, and I don't know the right or wrong answer to this. It's just something that I'm trying to think about over time. It's like drinking non-alc. Does that refine your palate more? I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know because I was the same. I didn't drink craft beer so much when I was a drinker. I drank cheap lager, and then I started to get more into craft during lockdown. And then that was when I was trying to drink craft beer at the same volume as I was drinking my cheap lagers. And then that's when, I became an alcoholic. But yeah, it interests me. I'd love to, and I don't mean this this is going to sound like there's going to be an intervention. I would love to drink like a normal person for one day and then return to this life. But I'd love to do it purely palate-wise. Like, I want to know what I'm not getting from alcohol-free beer, but then I want to know what people that drink full-fat beer are missing with alcohol-free beer. That's an experiment I'd like to run that I never can because I'm an alcoholic. But then a really good point came up from Morgan, the collectability side of things. This is where we can throw to Mr. Sloth and to Neil. I'm going to start with Neil because it's the ventures out to the pub but feel like, it's a joke about it. Neil's special trip to Manchester to have a pint, but it is that ritual, isn't it, of going out to get a pint. It feels just really special still.
Yeah, I mean, I was heavily into my craft beer before I became sober, and I used to find myself, I'd have to go somewhere where I knew there was decent beer on, and like I've got a couple of local bars near me that used to have to constantly changing tap lists, and I found myself just constantly wanting to go up there. You know what I mean? It's kind of, I had to try every single beer. It became a massive problem because I'd end up going to Manchester and I'd go in the morning, I'd spend the day there and never come back at night. It was terrible.
Were you untapped?
Yeah, just constantly drinking. I'd spend, I'd go from brewery to brewery to brewery to tap room, and it's just a bit of a nightmare, really. But now I don't do it. It's I can see it's nice to go back to the tap rooms now they've got alcohol free on tap. That's fantastic. I never thought I'd go back into the Track Brewery or Cloudwater, and especially Sure Shot, because they used to have they were so against alcohol free when I was drinking. They wouldn't even have alcohol free in the fridges. Really, it was that bad. But now after the recent alcohol free they did with We Can Be Friends, Sam, it was just it's great to go back in there, but it's also great to remember going in there and not being wasted, if you know what I mean. It's great. I'm enjoying having it on tap, but the craft beer thing was, for me, it started off obviously with the Brewdog thing, and then it slowly I used to drink a lot when I was a kid, and then I kind of stopped and slowed down, and then craft beer became like a habit for me. Like Morgan said, it was a hobby, and the alcohol was a hobby, and I found myself getting higher and higher strength beers. Like I ended up with, drinking. I had a hell of a collection of stout beers from Emperor Brewery, and all like 15, 16%. And I do miss that. I can still remember the burn, but like you say with the ethanol thing, all I can remember out of the alcohol is the alcohol burn that I used to get all the time. But I do have that obsession now. I've replaced that obsession with alcohol free because I'm sat here now next to seven boxes of beer on the floor next to me. I don't seem to be able to get through them. I keep putting orders in with the sloth and with Trevor.
So speaking of boxes of 7, how did it all come about for the sober sloth? What was the moment that made you think like, right, there's so many bloody beers out here now, why don't I just get all of them?
That was the dream. Well, I was big into Pokemon when I was a kid, and I had the dream of catching them all. And I was like, well, this is the grown-up version, innit? This got to try each and every one of these fucking things. No, I was because I started when I first started researching all of the different beers that are out there, is because I was sick of having Beck's Blue and Heineken Zero in every pub and bar that I went to in Prestwich, where I was living at the time. So I was like, there's got to be something more out there. And then a quick search on, I think it was Ebria was my first wholesaler. I saw about 30 or 40 different alcohol-free beers, and I was like, "What the fuck? How does no one know about this?" And obviously there were people like yourself, Ben, who did know about this, but I didn't know that other people knew about this. So I was kind of thought, we have to bring this to the masses. And I've got a lot of cupboard space in the house that I was renting at the time. So I thought, why not fill it up with some alcohol-free beers? And then the collection just gradually grew. But I kind of thought, like, it's weird because when the thing that I used to really love drinking, and it wasn't just beer, it was just alcohol, and I really loved the burn because I knew the more that it burnt, the more it was going to fuck me up. But I used to love drinking on my own just as much as I did with other people. But now so much of the joy that I get from alcohol-free beer is sharing in it with other people. So when I get messages in our group, or I get personalized messages, or people send me emails or whatever saying that they've really enjoyed an alcohol-free beer, or we all kind of share in a new beer by We Can Be Friends or Track or whoever it might be, and it just there's something indescribable about that connection that we all kind of share in that sense of community that I just, for some reason, I don't think exists in the same way in the craft beer or sort of the full ABV beer community. And I think it's partly because it feels like the alcohol-free stuff is made with a lot more care and a lot more attention because they don't have the alcohol, the ethanol to hide behind. They have to make something that genuinely tastes good if they want it to do well. So I think that's what kind of makes me feel so passionately about the alcohol-free space, is that I know, macro breweries aside, that they're being made really fucking well, and it just keeps getting better and better. And there's more and more people that are finding it more and more enjoyable. And I've been talking for at least 3 minutes now, so I'll stop. Morgan's got his hand up, so
It's all right. No,
Morgan's got his
It's only
hand up.
Morgan.
I've got to get my clips in somehow. Come on. I was going to go back to Henry's point from earlier on by saying, I think part of the magic of it now is like, if you don't compare it to what you've had before and you just enjoy it for what it is, that's where it's really special. Like I said, there's no ethanol for it to hide behind. And like, when I used to drink, I used to love like the Elvis juice Brewdog, just because, number one, if I had a pint of it, it would really send me skywards. And then secondly, it was so grapefruity that I just like loved that taste. And then I think that now it's kind of why I enjoy loads of the fruity alcohol-free beers, because it like reminds me of that. But like, obviously you can just have multiple ones and enjoy it and be like, oh, that's nice, whatever, instead of having like two and then being like, oh god, I can't see straight or whatever, but yeah, and it's good to have the options from the sloth. He's doing well, he's getting my money every month, that's for sure.
I think that's one of the things, though, isn't it? Because there are people in the full fat beer world that do what we do, and they do it in a very healthy way. There's beer influencers and there's beer commentators and all of this in the full craft scene that do things very well. That's all I'll say. It's not problem drinking; it's drinking for the love of the liquid, and that exists. But then there's people like, I'm not going to say us collectively, but maybe some of us in this chat that didn't drink beer for the love of the liquid, they drink beer to get fucked up and then
You
go out
only
and
have
get
to.
bags in.
You only have to see Untapped. There's a reason why Untapped was the point for me when I stopped being on Untapped. So someone said to me, "Do you want to collect badges or do you want to just drink what you want to drink?" And I was like, "Huh." And I think then after that, it kind of resonated in the back of my head, and that's it. I quit. Just went, right, I'm not going to use Untapped anymore because I know vaguely what I've drunk and what I haven't drunk and whatever. And that for me was the point of. And now I'm kind of. That was the start of the downward journey to where I was drinking less and less and less and less.
Because alcohol-free beer seems to be taking the people like myself that drank in volume as a problem, and it's actually then bringing that passion for the liquid into my
that's
life.
it. You can see some people who are very passionate in a not very healthy way for people, checking in like every day. And I mean, there was one guy in York, and you'd see him, and he would be there on his own. Fair play to having the confidence to do it on his own on an evening, and he would have a loop because he'd be out every night of the week. Some nights he'd be at home and he'd still check in on 3 or 4 beers there, but he was going out and just basically trying, like, he was mostly on half pints, but like you could just see him just checking in every new beer that was out. And it's that whole thing, like Neil was saying, of checking the tap list, what's new, what's this, going around every single new bar and just rotating around. There was never there was never a beer on draft that didn't get checked in. And now this was when craft was before it really started to really break out in can, where you still had quite a lot of releases that were going direct to pubs and not really getting into can. And then obviously now they can quite a large, almost all of their selection. So you kind of don't feel like you're missing out if you're buying it at home. But I think, I think the opinions and the attitudes towards alcohol-free amongst some people on Untapped, it's just so that kind of, it's like that's where you meet the really polarizing aspect to it. They're really passionate, but really passionate about just getting drunk and having large amounts of beers in all sorts of different types. And you're like, yeah, it shows there is passion, but it's just not the right end of the spectrum, is it, Billy?
I've gamified my AF intake in the same way that Untapped gamifies alcoholism. So, whatever gets you through it.
No, I'm guilty of that, because I feel like when you're in this, when you're side of the beer world, you do start to look at everything a little bit more like, well, that could be problematic, or that could be problematic, and it's like you see red flags left, right, and centre. Sometimes when there are no red flags to be seen, I'm probably guilty of that. I've definitely diagnosed some of my friends as addicts that probably aren't, But equally, you do start to see things very, very different, don't you, when you're not drinking, but you're still out in drinking environments. Like that kind of haze that seems to fog buildings and venues at about 11 o'clock. Whereas all of a sudden it's like, fucking hell, when did this all change? Everyone kind of seems to go into this weird like frenzy at 11 o'clock, whereas like, I don't recognise people anymore. It's so bizarre.
Question for you all. So have you ever had an alcohol-free drinking experience where you've maybe had, I don't know, some 2, 3, 4, and you've come out of it and you feel like you've had, for lack of a better word, like you felt like you've almost had a full ABV experience?
Yes.
But not. Like that kind of like, it's like I can't think of the word I'm thinking of.
Fuzzy. It's fuzzy.
Yeah, just a bit. I mean, I remember walking out of a pub and being like having, that kind of weird, like where you get hyper focused in your vision because you feel like if you're not concentrating on where you're walking, you're going to fall into the road, and you kind of go into hyper focus mode. And I was like, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I've just only had 3 non-alcoholic pints. What's going on? It's still daylight. What?
I think it's like when you walk out of the cinema and it's daylight outside and you're kind of a bit discombobulated. And you've been sat down, maybe your mate's got a round in, and you've been sat on your ass for an hour and you've drunk 2, 3 pints, you're dehydrated. I wanted to raise this question on top of your question, which is I'm convinced I could still get hungover off 6 AFs because it's not drinking water, it's too many salty snacks, not proper sleep, social occasion, whatever. And I've got a different medical thing going on in the back, but I'm convinced that other people must. I hope I'm not on my own. It's just like, am I hungover? It's like, no, because you just had 6 beers last night, but they were all AF, so you can't be hungover. You're just,
No, I do get that.
Yeah,
I sometimes wonder about the sugar as well.
Sorts me out. Yeah, sugar. Very good point.
Yeah. But it's like having, like, if you had like 8 or 9 coffees or like 8 or 9 teas, like you would just be pissing like a racehorse, and then you'd be proper like like the majority of the hangover is the headache. Is like the dehydration, isn't it? Because it just makes you go so much. And it's like I went to Dublin for a stag do, and I had something like, because obviously they're just getting the rounds in, and it was like 12 or 13 like Guinness Zeros in a day. I'll tell you what, there's no alcohol in them, but it fucks your stomach up big.
I've got
It's
to put my
like
hand
it's
up
like
here and
regular
say the
Guinness.
first
You were
time I
like
did it,
walking around, like it swells you up like nothing. No one's just mental.
I've had
Purity.
a catastrophic incident in a pub toilet after 6 AF Guinnesses. You can cut that out, but like you're not alone. I was like, holy moly, it got me going. I was like,
When we go on holiday, if we go to like somewhere kind of out of the way in Devon, like isolated little towns, and it's only Guinness, I call it Guinness roulette, because it's like, which one is going to give me smelly bum, quite frankly. It's really weird. I'm glad. Maybe this is all we're going to unearth from this episode is the Guinness Zero. Really, really good.
Yeah.
But if you drink too much of it, you will get the shits.
I think it's the iron content as well, though, because like iron tablets, for example, they are just famous for causing stomach problems and making your stools really dark and weird and whatever. So
They didn't put that on the surfing advert, did they?
And
Bastards.
now we know why we've got a pharmacist in the
Is that what it meant?
code.
Tick, follow, talk, follow, tick, follow, talk. It's just someone running to shit themselves. Why does every podcast I do end up in people talking about poo?
Yeah,
That's
it's
my
gone in a
question.
it's
weird
important. Your poo's important. That's why.
Well, I'm glad we've learned that.
It's a good measure of health.
I'm gonna wrap up in a sentimental way, and feel free not to join in. But when was the last time you had a really firm poo? No, my question is, what would you say if someone, let's call them Ben, was to say to each of you, what does alcohol-free beer mean to you? What would it be? Go on.
Would say connection.
Ooh, nice.
It's got me connected to all of you guys when I'm out and about in different places. I feel more connected having that because I've got a clear mind, and I can actually speak to people, take in what they're saying, and actually have a decent conversation that I'm going to remember. So I thank alcohol-free beer for connection.
It was lovely. That was lovely.
I would say alcohol-free beer is basically, I'd say, probably saved my relationships and friendships, mainly at the moment as well, because most of my friends now live quite far away. It's usually like at least an hour or an hour and a half, depending on where we meet up. So it allows me to go and see them, have a full day of drinking and enjoying their company, which I think has like a secondhand effect, which makes you feel like you've had a few beers because you're bouncing off everyone else's energy when everyone gets a bit crazy. And then also being like, right, it's about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. I'll see you guys soon. Jump in the car, drive an hour and a half home, and then go to bed, and then wake up, and then go, right, we're all good. Do it all over again.
And for me, it's relaxation. It's the ability to knock back, whether it's watching telly or on a podcast, that you can just sit back, have a beer, relax. It kind of breaks up the day. It's kind of that thing that it's that social marker of this is the end of the day. Whether it's in a pub, whether it's at home, doesn't matter. And I can still be focused because, I mean, obviously one of the big kind of clicks that why I sort of dropped it out a couple of years, a year and a bit ago, is because obviously I became a dad. So that was that extra kind of impetus to do it, even though I was barely drinking up to that point anyway. It's just that kind of, oh, okay, yeah, actually, this, if I'm going to be awake in like 2 hours or not, as the roulette of toddlers and babies will tell you, you really don't want to be going, oh, I'm just going to be nursing a hangover.
Yeah.
And, it's bad enough trying to function through having a toddler while having just being completely tired to hell because you haven't slept, but add a hangover on top of that, and you're like, yeah, no, this I can control. This I can, I can, work my way through, have a nice coffee or whatever, just work it slowly, or just the one, just to kind of hit the edge off.
Go next, if that's all right. I think for me, I think alcohol-free beer has given me so much freedom because I spent my life up until the point I stopped drinking hiding behind alcohol, and that very much felt like a trap. Like it wasn't I wasn't myself. I was kind of putting on. It's ironic because I now have this sloth persona, but I was putting on a different. I was being a different person to who I truly was, and I think that was preventing me from achieving what I wanted to achieve, from having the relationships I wanted to have, and connecting in the way that I wanted to connect. So for me, it gave me that sense of freedom that I wouldn't have otherwise. I'd just be kind of in a prison of vodka and rum and gin and full fat beer, and it would be horrendous. So I can't thank alcohol-free beer enough for what it's done for me, and for so many of us as well.
I'll clap, then I'll put my hand up. That was a great one.
I'm going to do one big clap at the end for everything.
Do one big clap. I think some of you guys have been really eloquent there, which is quite a tricky act to follow. But mine, I'm really keen to not come across as quite in any way self-centered here. But I am the center of my own universe, so I'll say what it means to me. But the craft beer scene with my friends was such a big chunk of my personality before I whacked my head and went into the coma and everything. So the ability, I often say that we're at the zeitgeist, we're at like the crescendo of alcohol-free beer, but we're only getting better. Every time I say that, next month gets better. But what it allowed me to do was maintain my lifestyle and maintain my personality and maintain my friendships. So it's a lot of what Henry said. It's a connection, right, really, fundamentally. So and it genuinely makes me quite emotional talking about it, because when I woke up and I was awake for 5 days in hospital, and I thought my world was coming to an end, like it was terrifying in all sorts of interesting and wacky ways. I thought that was my social life out the window. I thought that was everything gone, and I was going to have to learn to be me again and learn to do all sorts of other things in my life that I hadn't quite grasped. And then it was like alcohol-free beer was on the up, and I got to ride the wave of it. So, it can't, for my own mental health, go down, otherwise we're all fucked. So it has to keep getting better. And it does keep getting better. And every year I look back on it and I'm like, Christ, that year was better than the year before. So
no pressure, Sam.
I know. I did have a word with him. I met him once. I was like, you do actually have to keep this up. But that is what it means to me, is it's a big chunk of my personality, right? It's a hobby. Someone mentioned Pokemon earlier. Great way. Yes. Okay. So yeah. So that was it. It's like I see these little beer cans in much the same way. With my little shiny card of Sans here. Like, that's what it means to me anyway.
Amazing, mate. Well done.
That's good.
That's lovely. And we've got one more left.
Yeah, I'll go. I think alcohol-free beer has allowed me to carry on my obsession with keep trying many different beers. I never drank socially. I was always alone. I'd go out drinking alone. I still do. But it allows me to keep going out and finding my little adventures. I'm quite an obsessive person. I collect vinyl and I collect beer. I always collect a beer. I've just tried as many different beers as I can. And it's allowed me to just keep going and going. I didn't think I'd be able to carry on after once I started getting sober. But it allows me to just carry on my little obsession, and just meeting you guys, if you know what I mean. I'm talking to you guys. I was never talking to any other craft beer people when I was drinking. So this has kind of opened me up a bit since I've been sober. And alcohol kind of pushed me into myself, and I became very introverted. But I was out on my own all the time. But it's allowing me to keep that obsession going, but without all the mither and the anxiety. So that's what it's meant to me. Just to keep my life as it is, but without the mental attitude that I had about it.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? It's more than just a liquid. We can look at it as a liquid, and we can look at it as a drink. We can look at it as a beer. We can look at it however you want to. We can objectify it in whatever way you want. But it's more than that, isn't it? Because it's inclusion, and it's everything that comes with that. It's community. It fits into every facet of life. And I think at its core, it's belonging. And I think that's probably what it means to me, because I could take little parts of what everybody has said there and think, right, that was me, that was me, that was me. And alcohol-free beer it wasn't like a reincarnation of myself, because, that's over-dramatizing what actually happened. But it allowed me to keep living when I thought that there was no point anymore. And it sounds severe, doesn't it? But, I tried to kill myself twice when I was drinking alcohol, because I didn't think there was another way off that, and I wasn't ready to completely change my life. I wasn't ready to be a different person. And alcohol-free beer showed me that I didn't need to be a different person. I could still go to the pub. I could still go to wet places. I could still be with my friends. I could still drink beer. I could still have something in my hand. And actually, it's, we talked about how eloquent everybody was when talking about what alcohol-free beer meant to them. Whenever anybody asks me that question on podcasts, in interviews, I fall apart. And all words fail me. And I go, well, it's just, I've just done it then. And ended up saying, oh, it's everything. Because how can you pigeonhole one thing that saved your life? That's my take on it. And it's a pleasure to have met each and every one of you through this liquid, and to continue talking to each and every one of you through this liquid, and to watch you all on your journeys as well, because it's just lovely to see and it's lovely to share. And this community, I said earlier on social media, one thing I didn't think I'd find in this world is a second family. And that's absolutely what I have found, in the sober community, but also in the world of beer. And that's probably been the biggest shock, is actually finding people in the world of beer through alcohol-free beer. So with that, unless anybody has anything interesting to say to finish, go on then, Mr. Shameless Plug. Mr. Shameless Plug. Go on.
It's just,
he's got a can.
What?
I want to see it, actually.
No, it's not right. So don't get excited. So basically, this is a sticker, and I've put it over a can of Lifted because I was never going to drink it. But yeah, so basically, we're just we're getting really, really close with it. We've got some really good chats, and the guy's helping me with it. It should be, I would like to think, in the next few months. But one thing I had, we did a brainstorm yesterday about kind of what the brand means and everything, and one of the words, connection, but it's also, what is the one thing with regards to choice that we're all looking for? Like, if there's shit choice, you leave, you don't stick around. So what do pubs want you to do? They want you to stay longer. But then obviously, what do you want a friend to do? You want them to stay longer. So in a way, we're kind of going down that route. That's what beer is. It's an opportunity for you to stay longer. And I think that's when I sort of touched on that, I just thought that for me is what it's about. It's flavor, yes, of course, and everything, but it's making people feel welcome. And so I'm so, so excited. And obviously, thank you so much for everyone for being so positive about it. And look, I'm not expecting to take over the world with it. It's going to be a locally sourced, locally brewed, but it's something I'm really passionate about. But Ben, I've got to thank you for that. You've really led me down this path. You've introduced me to all these amazing people, and you've really given me a love for something and purpose. When I was in a 17-year career thinking that was my life paved out for me, I left it with no clue what I was going to do. And if it wasn't for you, I don't think I'd be on this path. So thank you so, so much.
Hey, man, look, I just, it's awkward. I mean, I appreciate it. Henry was talking about his beer that he's releasing. That's very exciting for those of you that aren't watching the visual of this, which I don't actually know if I'm going to release a visual, but I'll release that snippet just for you. Definitely that bit. Goodness. You're doing that now. Morgan, stop, please. That should be illegal.
Away, Morgan. Not again.
That's it. He's cut out. Let's
You've
go.
got 3 of them.
Is Henry in a toilet?
We got an hour and 17 minutes in, and then we turned
to in a wardrobe. I mean, my spare room, basically.
Fine, good. Okay, just checking. Just that while we're on it.
You just look like a corridor. You do not want to see me in the toilet.
No, so I started talking about this stuff because Martin Dixon, Alcohol-Free World, needs a shout out, because Martin Dixon is the OG of this world. What Martin Dixon doesn't know about alcohol-free beer isn't worth knowing, quite frankly. And I found Martin's page, and I thought, why are more people not talking about this? Similar to the start of the Sober Sloth. Why are more people not aware of this? And for me, I started talking about beer because I didn't want anyone else out there to feel like I did the day that I realised I had to stop drinking booze. I didn't want anybody else to feel like I had to stop drinking beer, because if I'd have known what I know now, it would have been so much easier. And I think I think of the amount of people out there that are really struggling with addiction or with anything that aren't going to be around for much longer for whatever reason. And I think if there was an off-ramp, and if that off-ramp was in liquid form, as it was for me, then it's a tragedy, isn't it, if more people don't know about it? So That's my modus operandi, is just to say, this stuff exists. If it works for you, then awesome. If it doesn't, which obviously we have to stress, alcohol-free beer doesn't work for everybody who is an addict, or for some people just don't like the taste of beer, then that's fine. But if it works for you, awesome. And in terms of hospitality, I think it's cater for one person or risk losing four. If I'm going out with my mates, and I'm sure each and every one of you, if you're going out with people and you go to somewhere and they don't do alcohol-free, the whole group of you is going to leave. Whereas if they do, you're all going to stay. You're all going to drink drinks of different ABVs, because that's fine. It's about inclusivity. It's about just everybody having a seat at that table. So cater for one, risk losing four.
I mean, that's it. It's the 1 in 4. Are you quoting the 1 in 4 statistic? That 1 in 4 visits to a pub are moderating or non-alcoholic?
No, mine was, if there's a group of 4 people and you don't cater for
right. No, there
me,
is. I'm sure.
Then you're going to lose me and my 3 mates. I've probably
I
stole
think there's
that
also a statistic which is that out of every 4 visits, so again, it's like 4 people, but will go into a pub or somewhere in hospitality, and they will want something sober. And you can ask even people who are like, oh, I could never give up. We go, right, okay, so of the last 4 times you went to the pub, was there a time you didn't drink? And they'll go, yeah, because I went on a lunchtime and I had a Coke or and so they have had a non-alcoholic experience in the pub. So there's always, everyone has had it, so it kind of goes up and up. So when you kind of go, well, actually, if 1 in 4 experiences are now non-alcoholic in a pub, fuck me, you've got to be providing better options across the board. Better spirits, cider, draft pubs. I've been long said, if you've got 10 pumps in a pub for keg, one of those should be alcohol-free. And for every 10 you go up, you add another keg of alcohol-free beer as a bloody basic minimum. And the same in the fridge. 10% of the fridge should also be alcohol-free as well, at least. And okay, bare minimum, because you could just see how much that would change some pubs to be pretty darn decent. But yeah,
gratuitous shout out for the Nelly in Tunbridge for having 2 AFs on all the time. Good stuff. And it's got like 24 lines on, like things you love to see when you walk into a pub that sells amazing craft beer, amazing cask for the old gammony types, as Ben would call them, and then you got something for me as well. Lovely stuff.
I mean, I say cask and cheap lager. They were my kind of drinks. I'm basically a Brexit voter.
I mean, I'd love some more I'd like the worlds of gammon and gammony Brexit beers, but in alcohol free. Like somebody's going to get cask right, aren't they?
Apparently.
I mean, a really good cask, that kind of beer that you want, like a really good sort of rounded bitter or a red ale or a amber ale, something you could just have on a big cask, slightly warm next to the fire.
Apparently Birmingham Brewing Co. did do a cask once, and okay. I don't believe that I didn't go and drink it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously cask. Well, the problem with cask beers, you obviously have to turn. It's a live product usually. You have to turn it around in like 3 weeks, which is why it's almost it's even only going to happen at a festival. So a festival where alcohol free is given such a high profile that it will just turn around. Because even I thought when Jordan invited me to, it turned out the last Indie Man and Mash Gang were pouring in the back room. I thought this was like, great, Mash Gang have been invited to this thing. This is going to be amazing. It's going to be loads. They were the only one, and obviously they had some keg cock-ups. They only had 1 keg of beer, and it was practically out by the end of the first day. So not a great representation of alcohol-free, unfortunately. And you could see that obviously with the Great Gammon Festival, obviously you could see that they were trying to be that little bit further down the line. And I think at some point it'll come, a festival that manages to balance a really decent amount of alcohol-free, and at the same time that sort of keeps everybody who's in the ABV section sort of going, actually, if everyone's not getting wild, should we not get wild? Should we moderate? Should we try some of that stuff? Wow, that's actually really good. Wow, you mean I could go home and get a train and have to be completely out of my head?
Well, I hope to see the day. The day. Thank you, everybody, for coming to have this little chat. We didn't descend into anarchy, which is nice. Organising, well, it was supposed to be 12 people. So shout out to Amy, actually, and to Jay, who tried to join the call and their internet wasn't letting them. But to each and every one of you, I say a great big cheers. Keep doing incredible things. Keep drinking lots of beer, whatever that looks like to you, because that's what this is all about. And, we'll talk probably in 5 minutes.
Cheers, Ben. Thank you for the platform, mate. Thank you for the conversation, the connection. This has been my first podcast, actually, and it's been an absolute delight. So thank you so much.
Oh, lovely.
Cheers. It's been lovely.
Thank you for listening to this special episode of the Sober Boozers Club podcast. I want to thank every single person that took part in that conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. My name is Ben Gibbs. You can find me on all the socials at Sober Boozers Club. Until next time, dear friends, I hope whatever is in your glass, it's bloody delicious.